Oh, thank you. I can't begin to thank everybody that's been tuning in since March, April time for the Kitchen Live, since we started in the beginning of our lockdown here in the UK. So I really love the fact you guys are tuning in, and hi to Amita as well. Oh, lovely. Well, it's saying let's go, so we better get started and get stuck in. So, yes, Christmas tree brownies. We're going to be making a really lovely, just a very easy chocolate brownie that we're going to bake, and then we'll let it cool, and then we'll turn into little Christmas trees as well. So this is a really good festive chocolate fun recipe that you can adapt and use throughout the rest of the year as well. And I made these last Christmas with the eldest nephew. Christmas Eve, normally we do some baking or something exciting, making Christmas dessert on Christmas Eve, and we made these last year, and unfortunately, obviously, with things as they are, we're not going to be with them this year. So we're making them anyway, and then we'll send Louis a picture and you can see what we've done. And Uncle Ian will eat them. So this recipe is going to make a batch of brownies, about 8 to 10 of them. And it's a really, really easy bake. And like I say, it's one I did with the nephews, and it's really easy for the kids to get in and help and whisk up. And then obviously the decorating bit, because that's the fun bit with all the icing and the sprinkles and the candy canes. And they're great for sort of Christmas movie night. I put on the Facebook page at the weekend, you know, what was your favorite movie combo, one of them meme things, and it was, I think most people actually said Home Alone, closely followed by Muppets Christmas Carol, and then Elf. Nobody decided Die Hard. Now Ian would tell you that Die Hard is his favorite Christmas movie. Men. Anyway, but these are great for watching all those fab movies with the kids and on a Christmas Eve and just tucking up as well. Like I say, it's a really simple recipe that you can then adapt and make throughout the rest of the year and tweak your flavors and your combos. It's really easily adaptable. So these were the Rolo brownies that we did in the at the end of the summer, the beginning of the autumn, I think. Gina says, absolutely yes to Die Hard. Yes, it is. And it is a great movie as well. A bit of Bruce Willis, but it is definitely up on the Christmas movies list and things. But, oh, and Love Actually, yeah, I cry. I made him watch Last Christmas on Saturday, and Amita and I went to see it last Christmas together. Last Christmas, and she will tell you that I sobbed, and she can't go to cinema without sobbing. And I sat on the sofa and sobbed my little heart out behind the cushions. Ian couldn't see me on Sunday. So Last Christmas for the Media Club, if you like a bit of George Michael and a bit of Wham and bit of a sing-along. Anyway, Christmas movies aside, Christmas tree brownies, which are great for watching all of those movies with. Ingredients-wise then, we are going to be using, again, it's a simple batch of ingredients and things. Oh, Mrs. H, Curly C, you're looking good, Looby Loo. Thank you, my lovely. Everybody's there. Oh, I hopefully come to see you next year. Fingers crossed. But yes, let's talk about the ingredients. So really simple ingredients, basic brownie recipe. So we're going to be using 150 grams of unsalted butter. If you want to use slightly salted, that's perfectly fine as well. I've got unsalted today. And you can add a little touch of salt in there as well. It helps bring out that flavour. We're going to be needing 150 grams of either milk or dark chocolate. I've gone with an even split on that because I don't want these to be too rich, too rich. Yeah, I want them to be a really nice sort of flavour that's got that we're going to add our icing to. So I've gone with a mix of milk or dark, or you could go with 150 grams of either. As well. If you want to make these chocolate orange, you could substitute that for Terry's chocolate orange or an orange chocolate as well. We've then got 250 grams of white caster sugar. We are looking for white caster sugar because we want, rather than a heavy granulated sugar, because we don't want it to crack on the top. We want these to have a nice, just a gentle crack. Too much in the sugar, too much granulated sugar, and you'll get those big cracks over the top. Obviously, we're Christmas trees and we want to decorate them, so we want them as nice and level as we possibly can. Bless you, girl, want some. I feel you, they're fine. Oh, bless him. Send him my love as well. And we'll bring some down when we come to Cornwall. You're also going to need 3 eggs, 3 medium eggs. These are at room temperature. Obviously, with the eggs, we don't want them straight out the fridge, because if they're really still cold, it takes a while for them to come up to temperature and work with the ingredients. And then when they go into the oven, they're still needing to come up to temperature. So room temperature eggs, really important. If you haven't got them out of your fridge in time for baking, just give them 10-15 minutes while you sort everything else out, and they'll start to come up. If you need them in a bit more of a rush, just pop them into a bowl of warm water, and that will help bring the eggs up to temperature without cooking them, importantly. We're going to be using cocoa powder as well. We've got 35 grams of that here. I'm using the dark, intense cocoa powder, like you would use for an Oreo sort of style thing. Again, I've run out of regular cocoa powder. It's close to Christmas and can't get any, but you can use normal regular cocoa powder as well. So that's the intense one. We're also going to need some plain flour, all-purpose flour, 100 grams of this. There's no raising agent in this. It's all done from the eggs. Beating the eggs, getting the air in there, whisking up is what's going to help lift and make our brownies nice and light as well. We don't want to use self-raising flour or add any other baking powder or anything like in there, because they'll rise too much and then they'll shrink back and they'll become quite dense and more cake-like. We want that nice fudgy browniness in there. And then we just need a little bit of, for decoration-wise, icing sugar or royal icing. Silver Spoon kindly sent me some lovely boxes of royal icing, so we've got that. Also, you can add a little bit of vanilla extract. This is our homemade one. And then for the decoration with the icing sugar, we can use some candy canes. These are going to be our trunks. These are little mini peppermint ones. You can get all sorts of different sizes. And then some Christmas sprinkles or whatever, little silver sprinkles or silver balls. I was thinking earlier, if you don't want to use candy canes, can't get hold of these are great. They come like in Home Bargains or in the supermarkets, have them in their Christmas aisle. You could use Cadbury's chocolate fingers. I was thinking they'd be really cool. We don't have any, unfortunately, and if we did, I'd probably have eaten the box. But you could use chocolate fingers instead. Equipment-wise, you're going to want a brownie tin. This is my well-used brownie tin, or an 8-inch square pan. We're going to be doing it with a hand mixer, but you can use a handheld mixer and a balloon whisk. And if you're doing that, you need a very large mixing bowl to get all that air in. You're going to need a little bit of baking powder. Somebody's laughing at me. And my usual, my offset spatula for leveling my brownies off. And then for decorating, depending on what you're doing, an icing bag. But yes, so that's all we're going to need today. So first things first, I'm going to leave the ingredients up as we get into it. So we're going to preheat our oven to 180 degrees C or 350 Fahrenheit. So that goes on, and we leave that to do its thing. And then first up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to melt my butter and my chocolate together. So we're not creaming the butter with this. It's not a cake. We melt the butter and the chocolate together, and then we'll add it to a whisked mixture of our sugar and eggs. So I'm doing this over a pan of water that's warm. So you can do this in the microwave if you've got a microwave. We won't talk about why I haven't got a microwave. I blow them up. But in a large bowl, then, if you're doing it this way, you want your butter and then add your chocolate in as well. So let's just pop that over our pan. And doing it this way, it means that our butter and our chocolate melt very gently. They're not having any direct heat, so we're not going to burn anything or cause it to overheat, which can cause our chocolate to seize. So we'll just leave that doing its thing for the moment. If you're doing this in the microwave, do it in 30-second blasts and then mix everything together. If you get to a point where your chocolate is almost melted, but you've still got some chunks, let the residual heat from the melted chocolate and the butter just melt those last bits. So just give it a stir and it will melt. You know, we don't want to go too hot with this. So, excuse me, a bit of squash. So whilst that's melting then, we're going to start getting our eggs and our sugar ready. So let's first off, we'll prepare our baking tray. And what I tend to do with this is I will lie a piece of parchment paper this way and then a piece of parchment this way. So you've got two pieces because then we can just lift it straight out and then it's easier to deal with the brownies whilst they're cooling. So I'm just going to take that on the side there. I've got the baking. This is my, if you've been watching, the baking parchment is my nemesis at the moment. This one's a Lakeland one. I'm not very happy with it, so I'm also going to put a little bit of cake release on mine because I don't like this one. So I will lay that like that, and then with the remainder, I'm just going to do the other angle. I can't believe that next week we will be it's like Christmas Eve. We've been at home for so long, I don't know where the year has gone, but yeah. So I'm just going to lie this then piece here, and what I will do is actually lie the longer piece on top of that. And I'm going to pop just a little bit, you don't need to do this, but I'm just going to pop a little bit of cake release into the four corners just to help it stick. And this is still the same jar that I made in August. We're nearly there. This stuff, I love it. So lie that one in and just help it stick down, come on. And then I'm going to lie this one across that way. What does Gina say? You're very good with scissors with your right hand. Yeah, I am left-handed, but I've always used scissors in my right hand. It actually feels really weird to have them in my left hand. I was watching a video, as you do, of somebody testing out left-handed gadgets, and they used a pair of left-handed scissors for the first time and said they were amazing, but it doesn't feel natural with them in my left. I don't know about anybody else that's left-handed. I'm in there with the right-handed scissors. So this is our baking tray. As you can see then, we've got these two sort of sides there and things, which means that once it's baked, it's just easy to lift out and also peel away without damaging our brownies. So we'll just pop that to one side and we'll check on this chocolate and butter, which requires a spatula, please. So that's starting to melt through, and it is very gentle. I could probably nudge that up a little bit. And then just pop that there for a moment. So whilst that finishes melting, we're all ready with our baking parchment. Next thing to do is to whisk our eggs and our sugar together. Now, as I say, you can do this with a handheld mixer, or you can do this with a balloon whisk if you want to have that arm workout, a bit like when we were rolling the sugar paste on Sunday. But into your bowl, I'm doing this with the stand mixer with the KitchenAid today with the balloon attachment, the balloon whisk attachment. Just going to pop. I'm going to do it like this because this is easier and I won't make much such a mess. Pop the caster sugar straight in there. If you want to, you can substitute some of the sugar for a brown sugar, like a dark muscovado or a light soft brown or a light muscovado, just to give a little bit more of a caramelly texture. That will make your brownies a lot more gooey because the hygroscopic nature of natural sugar is quite a damp sugar, if you've ever felt it, compared to a granulated sugar. So if you're doing that, you want maybe 2/3 of your white sugar and then the final third in being your brown sugar. I wouldn't go all the way. You can if you prefer it, but for these brownies, you want a little bit of something there to hold them. I'm just wandering away. As we just check the chocolate without setting the kitchen on fire. So that's nearly there. Right, I'm back. I wandered off to check the butter and the chocolate. So in here we've got our sugar, and then we're going to just add our eggs straight in. So 3 room temperature medium eggs. Somebody I think it was on the BBC Good Food forum, went, I've got eggshell in mine, that's why we don't crack in. It is one of them things. You can, if you prefer, to crack your eggs into a bowl first. So let's just rinse my hands. And then I'm just going to, this butter and chocolate I can hear now is probably about ready. So I'm just going to grab that and pop it onto a heat trivet for the moment. So just with turn the heat off so I don't set the tea towel alight. And then in here, then the butter and the sugar, the butter and the chocolate isn't quite fully melted. I don't know if you can see that, but actually it's really warm. So the residual heat from this is going to heat all that through and melt everything together. It just needs a little bit of a stir, but I don't want to overheat this because I do need it also to start to cool down before I add it to the eggs, because if I add it whilst it's too hot, it will start to cook my eggs. So we'll give that another stir in a moment, but we'll just pop that to one side. And with our sugar and our eggs in here, just making sure I turn the heat off, just pop it on and whisk it. And we're looking to whisk it until it's a nice thick fluffy mixture. It doesn't need to be like when we what did we do when we made this? And it was, I've completely forgot what I made, and we whisked the eggs to a thick pan. Oh, crikey, I've made so much over the last couple of weeks. Oh, it'll come to me. Oh, the Yule log, the chocolate Yule log. We don't need to take it to that extreme. We're not looking for it to be thick ribbons that don't fold in, but we want this to have doubled, sort of almost tripled in size. So when it's in the mixer, it's about down here. By the time it's ready, it will sort of be up to about the middle. So I'm just going to let that whisk through. And then with our chocolate and our butter, we're just going to keep stirring. I've got a couple of lumps in there that I can see that just needs to finish off melting. That's almost there. Now these brownies we're going to make, and then you have to let them cool down for a good hour and a half before you start cutting them. So we will get to that later. So this is now, if you saw when I took off the heat, it was still more of a melted butter mixture. The chocolate wasn't so melted. But now, just that residual heat, you can see I've got a nice smooth chocolate and butter mixture. So that's ready to go in. I'm just going to give that a little bit of a further whisking. What did Gina say? I bet this is KitchenAid's. She certainly is, although I've got a few things I want to do over Christmas. I asked we're going to my mother-in-law and my in-laws for Christmas with the whole bubble thing, and my family are up in Coventry, and I said last night, oh, what can I bring? What can I make? You know, with my sister-in-law's making a gluten-free, this sounds amazing, a gluten-free salted caramel chocolate tart, which I will be getting the recipe for. My mother-in-law is making a chocolate log, and she said, well, you could make the fruit salad. So I've got a day off baking for Christmas. So yeah, fruit salad apparently. I'm looking forward to that one. It'll be different, but Mrs. KitchenAid will be looking forward to some time off. So then, in terms of, it didn't take long to whisk that up at all. We're looking then, I won't bring it over because the balloon whisk will drip, but we're looking for, as you can see, it's a very light, fluffy mixture. It almost looks, if you ever melted or let vanilla ice cream melt when you were younger and then mixed it all up, it looks a bit like that basically. Last whisk. So before we add our chocolate and our butter, we want this to cool down slightly. And I can hold that, there's not that much heat in there now because taking off the heat earlier, taking it out of the microwave earlier, and letting that heat melt the remainder of the butter or the sugar, that takes that heat for that process, which then helps this cool down as well. So it's not warm at all to the touch, so I know I can safely add this into here without cooking my eggs. That's the thing, we don't want to add it when it's too warm because you'll scramble your eggs, and you don't want scrambled egg brownies. And actually, I just thought, you know, the microwave, I haven't watched any of Nigella's new program yet, but it was all over Twitter with her pronunciation of microwave. I love it. I call things strange things as well, and I don't want to say what she said because I might get it wrong. But it's most amusing. I'm just going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract here as well. This is our homemade one. There is a post coming up about this, but it's ever so simple to make. It's just vodka and vanilla beans. Ooh, and we made this at the start of September. So as you can see now, it's got a lovely dark colour. And I've got a very large bottle of it as well next door. So I've popped that in there. And now I'm just going to add my chocolate and butter mixture. Straight in, making sure I've got it all in, not wasting a drop. And then Ian's home this evening. He's normally on a mountain bike on a Wednesday evening in the wind and the rain, but with restrictions and stuff tonight, he wasn't able to go. So he'll be looking out for bowls to lick. And there's not a lot left in that one. So we've got our melted chocolate and butter in here with our whisked eggs, caster sugar, and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'm just going to bring all that all together now. And I'm just going to get it sick. So just give it another whisk through. So it incorporates everything there. And that is all we need to do with the mixer. So if you're doing this by hand, now is, you know, there's no more beating or whisking, and if you're doing it with a hand mixer, that's it as well. Let me just get rid of that. So we end up with a chocolatey mix like this. We can get rid of that one. And get rid of the KitchenAid. And now we're going to add our flour and our cocoa powder. I sieve mine in, so I'm going to do that in parts. Can we have, when they do the new X firmware, can I have one that stops it doing that, please? So just sieving in our plain flour. We don't want any lumps or bumps in there. And then our cocoa powder as well. And cocoa powder has a tendency of clumping, so if you're doing cocoa powder, sieving's always a good idea, and just gently help those bits through with a spatula. I'll get rid of that. And then we're just going to fold this through very gently, being careful not to knock too much of the air out of those whisked eggs. But you want to make sure you've got everything. So make sure that you've got your scoop from the bottom to make sure there's no leftover cocoa powder or flour in the bottom of your bowl. If you're doing this in a big glass mixing bowl, you'll be able to see that. And go through. So, got a nice thick chocolatey mixture. If you're using a regular cocoa powder, it'll look a bit more lighter in colour than this. Remember, I'm using the intense cocoa powder there. If you want to, you can add some chocolate chips. I forgot I got these out. So this is just 50 grams of chocolate chips. So I'm going to pop those in there as well. And give that a stir through. Now that's our brownie batter made. So if you are doing this by hand with a large mixing bowl, you can get the kids involved. They can beat the sugar and the eggs together with the balloon whisk. And then once you've done the melting bit and the hot bit, they can pour that in and they can fold through. They can chuck the chocolate chips in. They can do the stirring as well. Like I say, I did this with Louis last year. And he loves it. I think Vinny will at some point as well. That child loves baking. So into our prepared baking tin then. So I'm just going to add a little bit of my cake release because this is the baking parchment I don't like and it doesn't like me. So I'm just going to put a thin layer over here, just on the base, not on the sides, just on the base, because that's where I have it and I do not like each other, this baking parchment. You can use greaseproof as well, or if you've got a baking parchment that works for you, be my guest. But this one and I are not friends. So once I'm ready now, it's just a case of pouring in our brownie mix. So just pour it in from the top into the middle, and it will start to find its own way into all the corners. And make sure you get everything out. Get all that brownie batter out, and remember to leave some for your husband. Right. So before we pop this into the oven, I'm just going to level it off. You can do this with the back of a spoon or a flat palette knife. If you've got one of these, my favourite thing is an angled spatula, sometimes an offset spatula or an angled palette knife. And it just means that I can get that in there and I haven't got to get my hands down to the same level, which means I can just spread it nice and easily, and then just gently work your brownie all the way to the corners. And then level it off. There we go. Make sure we're all at the same level. All things put into lick, the bowl, the spatula. And now this goes in for about 30 to 35 minutes. And then once it's baked, what we'll do, once it's baked and cooled, is I'll chop it up into triangles. And we'll talk about that, but let's get it in the oven. This needs to go in now for about 30 to 35 minutes. We want it to be, normally I go for 30 minutes for a brownie. For these, because we want a little bit more, we want them to have a little bit more structure because we're going to cut them. I'm going to go more towards the 35. We'll check them about 30, but we're probably going to go more towards 35. Normally we want a really nice centered gooey brownie, but we need these to have a little bit of structure. So this now goes in the middle of the oven. If you're heating top and bottom, and we'll let it do its thing. I'm going to bake this for 15 minutes and then flip it round. As I said before, I've got a hot spot in my back left corner, so I know that bit cooks faster than all the others, and then I'll just spin it round. Once we get to 30 minutes, I'll test it. And rather than a cake, when we test the center of the cake, I'm going to test from the edge. So I'll go about 1 inch in from the edge of the brownie and test there. Once it comes out, what I'm looking for is just maybe a slightly bit of moisture, a bit of wetness, but actually it's not cake batter wetness, it's just moisture from the brownie and maybe a few crumbs. If I pop the skewer in or the toothpick in and it comes out and it's still got what is obviously brownie batter on it, then it needs to go in, and I'll just bake it for a couple more minutes at a time and then test again. So maybe about another 5 minutes and test again. If I put it in and it comes out and it's dry and there's crumbs on it, then that is my point to stop because it's gone too far. Gina says, your kitchen is about to smell amazing. I know, and I've still got to have dinner. And then these will be in the oven, and then I need to let them cool down, and then I have to wait a bit more, and then I have to take pictures of them. So we probably won't get to eat these until tomorrow evening. So the smell now disappears. It's like, oh no. But yeah, so talking about how that is, what happens is these guys then, once they cook, will come out the oven, and I will leave them in the pan to cool for about another 10 to 15 minutes before taking them out of the pan and then leaving them to fully cool for about an hour and 15, an hour and a half. Leaving in the pan for that first 15 minutes before we take them out, the brownie, because we're looking for it to still be a little bit soft in the center, is still cooking. So again, a bit like the butter and the chocolate melting, the residual heat there will cook our center of our brownie until we get to the right point. A bit like when we did the chocolate orange cookies the other week, we wanted them still to be a little bit soft in the middle, so we take it out sooner and let that residual heat just finish off the baking. I'll then put it onto a wire rack to completely cool. Now we're going to chop these, like I said, into triangles. However shape of your triangle you go will depend on your on your tin. So obviously this is a rectangle one, so I will go straight, do a straight down line down the middle, and then I'll cut my triangles off that. And you're probably going to get some offcuts, so they're the bits we can eat before we photograph them. But you do want to make sure that they're fully cooled. If they're not, they'll sag and they'll droop out the sides. So you want nice crisp edges. If you want to make sure that you're definitely going to get sharp edges, once they're room temperature cool for an hour and a half or so, you can pop them into the fridge for about 30 minutes just to firm up, and then cut it. It's not going to change the texture of your brownie. It's not going to make it hard or anything like that. It's just going to be easier for you to cut and get nice sharp angles for your Christmas trees. So these are going to be a while, and like I say, they're going to take a while to cool, so we're not going to do that on camera, but what I will do is I'll tell you about, and we'll make the icing for the top. So there's different ways you can do this. You could do it, now last year when I did them with Louis, we went in and the night before Christmas, we don't want to be making buttercream and icing and all that. So we use the icing tubes that you can get in the supermarket, the ready-made icing, and then you just squeeze it out. I think we even found it had 2 colours in it, or maybe it was 3. So we had red and green and white coming through that. So you can use the ready-made icing. Not a problem. And if you're doing it and you're getting the kids to decorate it, they want to eat it quickly. So that's the easiest way. And then you just chuck your sprinkles on the top, or do whatever you want to. If you've got some buttercream left over, or you want to make buttercream, you can do that. You don't need a full batch of buttercream for these, just a small batch. So if I was using buttercream here, I'd normally do it if I've got some left over that I can make use of. But instead, because it is small batch, I tend to use a run-out icing or a runny icing or water icing instead. So we, however, are going to be using royal icing. Carruthers Silver Spoon very kindly sent me some. But this, you can use normal icing sugar, just like we've done run-out icing before on various different things. So it's the same method. But this is going in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to just make this up to a thick but runny texture. And this is going to go everywhere. So I'm trying to find the best way of making this without sort of destroying everything. There we go. Now, you can leave this white if you want, so it looks like snow on our Christmas tree. I'm going to be adding a little bit of colour with the food gel colours again. Like I said, you can, these are the Pro Gel ones. You can get ones off the gel from the supermarkets. Dr. Urk do them. I think some stores do that. Home brands as well. You can use the paste. I would avoid using the liquid, the old style liquid food colours that you get in the little jar, because what we're looking for this is all about consistency for our icing. We want it to be thick, but still smooth and still sort of runny, but it needs to be thick enough to hold itself. So we don't want to be adding any extra liquid. So with those, the liquid gels, the old style liquid gels, in order to get that to the consistency that we need and to get the colour that we want, we have to add a lot of icing sugar. And then you end up with just quite a lot of icing sugar and nothing to put it on. And it's not the most pleasant to eaten on its own, not like your chocolate buttercream or something. So if you can use a food gel or a paste, that's better for this. Or like I say, you can buy it ready-made. And I think you can even buy like run-out icing, like runny icing like this now ready-made. So we'll make this in a moment. I'm just looking at these. These are the mini candy canes. Now, when we chop our Christmas trees into triangles, we want a trunk. And these I've always used candy canes. These are the mini ones, like this, or you can get the larger ones. Louis actually used these last year and just put them straight in like this, because he said this is something, you know, you can hold it, Auntie Lou. It's like a little finger hold for you. If you've got your triangle on the top, this is like, it gives you a real good grip on your brownie Christmas tree, Auntie Lou. Like, that's quite genius, Lou. And yes, it does get very confusing when there's two Lou's in the kitchen baking and his mum's telling him off, and I think it's me. He doesn't get told off. It's me that gets told off for feeding them more sugar before they get a bed. So you can use the candy canes. If you don't want to have your little handy holder there, you can just break this off, and all we'll just do is pop that into the straight edge of the brownie. Maybe just, if you want to, just use a skewer or a toothpick just to make a hole there before you go in with the candy cane. And then the offcuts you can eat or crunch up, chop up, and then sprinkle over the top as well. These are peppermint ones, so peppermint and chocolate goes really well together, really Christmassy. Like I said at the beginning, if you haven't got candy canes, or you don't have to put them on, but you could use a Cadbury's chocolate finger instead. Like I say, I don't have any in the house, and if I did, there probably wouldn't be any left. So, but you could use chocolate fingers. Cadbury's chocolate fingers would go really well as well. For decoration on the top, there's lots of things you can do. You can get star sprinkles, all sorts of sprinkles. These are just a mixture, home mix of various that I've got now, but these are just, probably can't see in this jar, but they're just white, red and green, and there's a few yellow stars in there as well, which I'll pick out and pop on the top of my tree. You can also get luster sprays in the supermarkets as well. Edible glitter is no longer, there's lots of history around that, but you can get little sparkle dust instead. So make sure if you're using any of the sparkles, the lusters, that it is food glitter. I shouldn't call it glitter, food sparkle. And you can normally find that, again, some of the supermarkets now have started doing their own. Dr. Earth could do one, but you can also find it in craft stores like Hobbycraft as well in the UK and various other places, which would make your Christmas trees look very pretty. So then we're going to, I'm just going to check the time on this, 4 minutes to go. Actually, you can see it, it's risen really nicely and it's nice and smooth on the top, so it's looking good. But whilst we finish off, I'll make this icing and I can show you the consistency that we're looking for. So there's no real measurements with this, it is all about getting the right consistency. So I'm going to just go in with a normal spoon and just take a good 2 spoons of that, and then I'm going to go in with some cold water, and probably not that's too big, and find something in the drawer. This is a teaspoon, but probably don't actually need that much as well, so just start with like a half teaspoon, maybe a little bit more, to start bringing it together. Yeah, we'll need more than that. Now, you can, if you add too much water, yes, you can add icing sugar, but actually then you end up with a lot of icing. So it's easier to start drier and add water to it, a drop at a time, than to keep adding in your icing sugar. So I can see I'm going to need another teaspoon. And I'm just going to mix it up. Actually, I need another teaspoon. I've got too much now. It's too runny. So this consistency is really runny, and that just means that when we pipe it or the kids spread it onto the brownies, it's just going to melt away. It's just going to flood and run out to the sides, and we want it to hold itself. So if you've been watched those videos on Facebook and YouTube of people icing cookies where they get that really nice edge before they then flood the center and they just have to manipulate it out, that's what we're looking for in terms of our icing consistency. So this needs a little bit more. I'm going to add probably half what I did last time. And I'm just making a small batch, but yes, you can make a larger batch depending on how many brownies you're making or how much icing you like on your. Now, this consistency now is a little bit too thick. Yes, I'm being picky. What we're looking for is it easily drops off the spoon, but it holds itself. So it's not thick, heavy, but it's still a little bit runny. So when it drops, it runs quite freely. This is coming off in chunks. So it needs a little bit of water, but not too much. I'm going to use my colour instead. Gina says, I find icing really difficult to get right. It is, and it's, I'm going to leave it up for Mirren. I stand out, when I used to do this in the shop, when I had the shop and I was teaching people, I'd call this the plop test, because we want it to plop off, and it's that, but actually the remainder of the icing on the spoon isn't. Hold that thought. Let me just turn these brownies round. Let me just get that. I'm just going to spin these round. Oh, wow. Oh, it smells so good. I'm going to pop that back on. So that was 15 minutes. I'm going to do another 15 minutes. So back to that thought, our icing. Yes, we used to call it the plop test. So we plop off the spoon, and the remainder of our icing on there would not run off like this, like in jagged, studdery drops. It would run really nice and freely. And I always find it's difficult, so I didn't do a lot of this, but this will plop, but actually now this stream is still, it's like bloop, bloop. See if I can do it a bit closer to the camera. So it's nearly there. So watch, it plops, but this is like, oh, it's behaving itself now, but it's sort of, as you can see, it just is a bit still too thick. So it doesn't need a lot of, if I add water to this now to thin it, I literally need a drop. If I add any more than that, it's just going to go over again and we're back in with the icing sugar and all sorts. So that's why I say if you're adding colour, adding the liquid colour to get the colour that you want. They're not very intense colours, so using the liquid colours, you need to add a lot to get a really good colour, which means then you have to offset that with the icing sugar and you're backwards and forwards with that. So I'm gonna colour this now before I add any more liquid, because even though this is a gel paste, it will add a little, it will thin this down slightly. So before we add sugar, I'm gonna just go in with this, and these are super concentrate, so I'm just going to add probably too much. You can see it on the spoon, that's all I've added. And our colour, there we go. I want, this is bright green, but you can get things like Christmas tree green or holly green, but I want some fun, so we've gone for a nice bright green there. Actually, you might be able to see. So you can see it's coming off the spoon in like a little stuttery stop-start. So all I'm going to do is with this spoon here, it's just pretty much wet. And I'm just going to tap it. A couple of drops. And let's see. No, that's still a little bit too thick. So I'm going to add another. Come on, the water doesn't want to come off the spoon now. Another couple of drops. There we go. And you'll feel it. It should be smooth but spreadable. It shouldn't be lumpy or anything like that. And it is one of them things. You'll read recipes and they'll tell you 2 tablespoons of icing sugar, 2 teaspoons of cold water, but actually, and then you'll end up with a really runny icing. You're like, ugh, no. But that's a guideline, I'd say. It's more this. So here we can see, and then it plops off and it's just free running. And that's the consistency that we're looking for. It's not thick, it's not heavy, and it's not runny at all. So let's just do it again. It plops and then it follows through, just running straight through. And it coats the spoon as well. It will coat the spoon really nicely. It'll be a really intense colour. It's not translucent. If it's translucent and you can see the spoon through it, you've got far too much water in there. So plop, and then it runs off. So yes, the plop test. Apologies. You know, don't tell the kids. Has all sorts of things. So I will make this into a slightly bigger batch, ready for decorating my brownies when they have fully cooled and I can cut them. But that's how we make the icing. I'm just making a run-out icing. And what I'm doing is you can do it in various ways. You could spread it all over the brownie if you wanted to, so you had a whole green tree, and then pop the sprinkles on. I'm going to pipe mine in like a swirl down from side to side, so it looks a bit like tinsel, but you can still see the brownie beneath it. And then I'll scatter that over with my little sprinkles here. You could make a bigger batch of this, like I say, and pipe, smooth it all over, let that dry, and then make a smaller batch up of another colour, like a yellow for some like gold or whatever, and then pipe that over the top as well, and various bits and pieces. But you want to be putting your sprinkles on though whilst it's still wet, straight away almost, because if it's too dry or it has dried when you sprinkle them on, there's nothing for them to stick to. So that pretty much is as far as we can go at the moment. There is a video from when we did the Rolo brownies about a couple of months back now. I will link to it, but about I just did a quick live when I took them out the oven so you could see the testing, making sure that we got right, but that's in there as well. And this will keep, if you make this ahead of time like I've just done, just place a bit like custard when you place a piece of cling film over the top and lay it on so it doesn't form skin. You can do the same with that. Or if it does dry out, just add another tiny drop of water and it'll bring it back to life. I'm just going to check that. 8 minutes to go. It's risen really nicely in there and it'll be ready to go soon. So I'm just going to grab a sip of water. Squash. say that's as far as we go at the moment. I will obviously get this up. I'm off for a couple of days. I'm off for the rest of the week, actually. It's quite exciting. I've got work next week and we're working up to Christmas, but I've got a couple of days off this week, so I am catching up. The Christmas cake that we finished off on Sunday, I've taken some pictures this afternoon, so I'll put that up as well. I really want to do that post justice for all the bits and pieces about making a traditional fruit cake for Christmas. So that post is probably not going to be live until the new year. But if you are making a fruit cake, you can find all the ingredients and all the information in both of those kitchen lives as well, which are up there too for you. So, morning again. It's a nightmare that I do not know why they do it. Apparently it's not just Canon cameras that do it as well. They all do it. 30 minutes. It's like a little warning bell. Anyway, this evening has been all about Christmas tree brownies. So these are what you guys voted for. Very narrowly missed out to the puff pastry Christmas tree last week. And this will serve about 8 to 10. It depends how big you cut those triangles or how many you want to split it up into, and also whether you're using a rectangle tin or a square cake tin to bake in. But they, as you've seen, they're really easy to make. There's basically 3 steps. Melt the chocolate and the butter, whisk the eggs and the sugar and fold in the flour and the cocoa powder, and then pour it into your baking tray. But that's all you really need to do. So it's really, really simple, and it's great to make them where the kids can get stuck in, and like we've just been talking about, the icing and everything, they can help with the decorating as well. So it's really good fun, especially sort of in that run up to Christmas. Things. Gina said, oh, I've just seen that. That's a really good, great technique to remember. I'm assuming you talk about the icing, but yeah, hopefully it is. It's just, it's all about that texture and consistency. So with these, yeah, they're really good fun. And if you're watching a Christmas movie, you know, we've got Love Actually, we've got The Muppets, we've got Elf, we've got Home Alone, and of course, there's Die Hard, the ultimate Christmas movie. Although you'd be hard pushed. For me, it's After Christmas. We do like a bit of After Christmas, and I will even watch it in the summer. So sit down with the kids, have a Christmas movie, have some fun, and have a chocolate brownie. Most of us aren't going very far this year, so it's all about being together with the ones that you're with as well. But the recipe is super simple, so you can use this because it's just a chocolate brownie recipe. You can use this any time of the year. You can mix it up. You can chuck white chocolate in there. You can chuck Rolos in there and all sorts of bits and pieces. I went with a mixture of chocolates, so you can use a chocolate orange and all sorts of things like that. But this picture here is the Rolo brownies. So as you can see, they've got a little bit of cracking on the top because that's what brownies do, but we've used that caster sugar rather than a granulated sugar, so it's not a heavy crack through there. So talking about sugar then, ingredients wise, again, very simple, store a couple of ingredients. We're using butter. I've used unsalted here, but if you want to use a slightly salted or use unsalted and add a pinch of salt, you're welcome to. You can use milk or dark chocolate or a mixture. I've gone with a mixture because I didn't want these really intense chocolatey. I wanted it quite mellow, but with a nice richness in there. If they're for kids, you probably want to go more towards the milk chocolate instead. And with it being Christmas, I know we talked about mint arrow and chocolate orange cheesecakes last night on the page. You know, you could swap that out. You could go for melted chocolate orange instead, or a mint chocolate as well. Or you could add a drop of peppermint extract in instead. Caster sugar we're using because we don't want too much cracking, so it's not a normal granulated, it's a nice caster sugar. It's going to keep that nice top texture that we've just seen. 3 eggs at room temperature. Make sure you bring them up one way or another, whether you pop them in a bowl of warm water to help or not. Plain flour and cocoa powder. There's no raising agent, no self-raising flour or baking powder with this. We're using the plain flour because the eggs whisking the eggs up is what's going to give it our lift. And this one's got a really good rise on it. I don't know if you can see it, but it's got a really good rise on it. But it will gradually sink when it cools down. For the decoration, like we've just said, we've talked about icing sugar. I've used a royal icing sugar, but you can use a regular icing sugar, and that technique for the consistency stays the same. You can always use store-bought icing, store-bought buttercream, or make buttercream, or if you've got some leftover, you can do that as well. But this is the easiest way, and if the kids are decorating, it's more fun and less stress in terms of cleaning up. Some sprinkles to put on the top, and candy canes for our Christmas tree trunk, or the chocolate fingers, the Cadbury's chocolate fingers, if you haven't eaten them all. A little bit of food colour as well if you want to. Equipment wise, very simple. Our brownie tin or an 8-inch square cake tin works perfectly. I did mine with a stand mixer, but you can use a handheld mixer or a balloon whisk. Get some, it's arm day, get them working with a large mixing bowl. Baking parchment to line the tin. It helps you lift the brownie out and lets it sort of all stay. We're not having to battle with anything sticking to the sides of the pan. An angled spatula just to level it off, or you can use a regular one or the back of a spoon. And then I'm going to be using a piping bag just to pipe this over the top. So again, a lot of it, there's nothing fancy, and you can make do with what you've got in the kitchen. So it is a really good one. Obviously you'll need a really sharp knife or a sharp knife. That's not one for the kids to do when you chop it into the Christmas trees. So that's it. I will pop these up I will pop it up once it's baked, and tomorrow once it's cooled and I've cut them, I'll pop you up, probably on stories. I'll pop up a little, this is what they look like before I get everything ready and take the nice pictures. I like the nice pictures, but I will show you what they are. But thank you very much, guys, for joining me once again on a Wednesday evening for a Bonus Kitchen Live. I can't believe that next Wednesday is Christmas Eve. So we will be doing something. I don't know what we're doing yet, but it'll be something really nice and simple, and we're not doing too much because, you know, we're going to have a little bit of fun instead of sort of thinking, oh God, I've got to get more ingredients. So we'll do something next week, Wednesday. If you've got any ideas that you'd like me to do, something fun. I had thought about the chocolate bombs, Gina, but I haven't been able to get a silicone mold for it because it looks like everybody's doing them. Oops. That's the 30 minutes. So I'm just going to do the test on this actually while you guys are there. I'm just going to take it out, and you can't see me, I'm just slightly off camera, but rather than testing with the skewer in the centre, I'm going in an inch and an inch. You probably can't see it because I've gone through it, but it's still a tiny little bit wet, but there's some crumbs on there. So I'm just going to pop that. If I go in the centre, it's definitely not cooked. So I'm just going to go in for another few minutes. So I know if I give that 5 minutes at the most, they will be done and they'll be perfect. So when I just put it out there, there was a few crumbs on the skewer. There was a tiny little bit of cake brownie batter still, but it was predominantly sort of the moisture from the brownie. But I want these to be a little bit less gooey in the centre because I want to chop them up. So I'm going to pop them back in. So these will have had 35 minutes. Anyway, we'll leave them to finish off. I wanted to say, if you've got any ideas for next weekend, please let me know. I had thought about the chocolate bombs, but it seems the entire world has decided to make them, and I can't get a spherical silicone mold. So we might do those, maybe we might do them I know we've still got, it's Christmas and it's hot chocolate, but we've still got plenty of winter to do. So we might do them when we come back after Christmas. But if there's anything quick, easy you'd like to do, then please let me know. On Sunday, however, we will be using our homemade mincemeat, finally. Yay! And we'll be making homemade mince pies. This is one of my favourite things for Christmas. This is my granny's recipe. We'll be making the pastry and we'll be making those mince pies, and then we'll be eating them with some custard, nice and warm. But I just want to say thank you, everybody, once again for joining me on a Wednesday evening. I said at the beginning, I can't believe we've been together for 10 months doing this during lockdown. I really am so grateful for everybody joining. And I've met so many of you, not obviously in person, but in this respect. So it's great, and I love seeing you guys pop up and all your comments and things. I feel like I'm getting to really know you. So yeah, I've got some exciting things hopefully coming for next year as well. So, but we'll still be doing more of these. Don't worry, I really enjoy them. But in the meantime, I'm going to love you guys, and I'm going to leave you to the rest of your Wednesday evening. Thank you very much for watching wherever you are in the world. Please take care of yourself and everybody else as well. And I hope you are well. And I will see you on Sunday for our last Sunday Kitchen Live before Christmas. Have a lovely evening. See you soon. Bye for now.